Well, it's the spooky season once again as we've hit October 2024, and so that means it's time for another horror-related video. This time around, we're actually covering a film that focuses on a soldier and an actual military uniform which appears in a slasher from 1981. Often overlooked, if not completely unknown by many, this movie has gained quite a cult following due to its very atmospheric feel, pretty realistic gore effects thanks to the legendary Tom Savini, which you'll have to see by actually watching the movie, and a rather simple yet peculiar killer who shares the same name as the movie itself. The Prowler. Slasher movies, seeing early outliers through the 1960s and 70s, it wasn't until the late 1970s and early 80s did they really explode in popularity, seeing franchises begin, such as Halloween, Friday the 13th, A Nightmare on Elm Street, and Child's Play to name a few. However, among these, quite a number of one-offs were seen, some of which stood out, and others which are lesser known but still helped shape the subgenre. One of the more interesting of these was 1981's The Prowler, also known as Rosemary's Killer to many outside the United States, and Pitchfork Massacre to those in North and South Carolina circa 1984, due to a somewhat mysterious re-release. Its story is rather straightforward but features something of a mystery as it begins in 1944 with a woman named Rosemary breaking up with her sweetheart, a soldier fighting in the war, by way of a Dear John letter. Skip forward to 1945 and she's attending the town of Avalon's graduation ball with her new boyfriend Roy. After leaving to be alone with one another, the two are attacked and murdered by an individual hidden behind an army uniform. Skip forward again 35 years to 1980 and the town is preparing to have its first graduation celebration since the slayings, with many not even recalling the events of the previous one. Instead, they are eager for the party and excitement, even with reports of a murder occurring not far from town. However, as the evening's events begin and students prepare, a prowler lurks around campus, and it's not long until murders begin again. Now, as mentioned before, the movie is something of an obscure one, but still has a dedicated following and is often praised by critics, outlets, and fans of horror, seeing it on many best of slasher film lists. However, apart from the aforementioned reasons, one interesting thing about it is the killer, referred to and thought of as just a prowler who throughout seemingly dons a US World War II Army uniform while stalking and killing his victims. So let's take a look at what he wore and used. We'll start with the obvious, his weapons, of which he had 4. The first and perhaps most obvious is a 5-round pronged pitchfork with a wooden handle. When he was on the back heel, he also utilized a sawed-off double-barreled shotgun, though because of the briefness of it in the film and its stripped-down look, it's hard to say exactly what model. However, his go-to weapon was a bayonet. Now there were actually 2, a shorter one he kept in his right gaiter, and a much longer one on his hip, both of which can be clearly seen during something of a suit-up montage. The primary one was a US M1905 bayonet, which was used by troops fighting in the war between 1941 and 43. These were originally produced and issued between 1906 and 1922 for the US M1903 Springfield bolt-action rifle, and were then refitted and altered slightly for use with the M1 Garand. His particular model lines up with the World War II version, as it includes the M3 scabbard and a black resin-like plastic grip. His other one, which is strapped to his leg, is something of a custom hodgepodge one, as the main blade and scabbard are a Spanish M1941 bolo bayonet made for the Spanish M43 Mauser, produced from 1944 until 1958, which itself is tied with what looks like a portion of green parachute cord and snap secured to the canvas frog portion of a modified US M8 bayonet scabbard, which sees its metal wire connector hook removed along with the addition of a green band attached, which was tied around the calf at the top and finally tucked into the gaiter at the bottom. And speaking of gaiters, his were actually late war olive drab No. 7 M1938 dismounted canvas ones, as denoted by the 7 lace hooks. Different production years saw different quantities. Below those were Type 2 service shoes, as indicated by the sheen on the leather as well as the mostly black rubber soles. Moving up though, we come to the main portion of the uniform, the jacket and trousers. Upon initial inspection, one may think the US M1943 uniform, since he's supposed to be a World War II US soldier. However, each of the 3 pieces, those being the trousers, jacket, and detachable hood, have features which identify them as later uniforms, all of which were based on the M1943's design. The most straightforward of these 3 was the detachable hood, which is the M1951 version, as it didn't feature any leather where the adjuster cords are. Moving down to the jacket, it too isn't the M43, as early on during the sequence where the Prowler dons his uniform, a shot of a zipper is seen. The M43 had a button front closure. However, 2 things make it a bit more confusing. The first is the zipper pull, which isn't standard for the M1951 nor most issued M1965 field jackets. However, numerous companies produce them for both official and commercial uses, with some of the latter seeing different pulls, with one of the more widely seen being Proper brand, which continues to utilize the same style to this day. The second element, though, are the exposed buttons seen on the front as well as for the shoulder tabs. These are actually BDU-style ones, which immediately identify it as the M1965 field jacket. Moving down finally to the trousers, it's a similar story. Being that they feature thigh cargo pockets, it takes the M43s out of the running, leaving either the M1951 shell field trousers or the M1965 field trousers, as again both are very similar in overall appearance. Chances are good they too were M65s though, as they look nearly identical and were, and continue to be, more common and cheaper than M51s, not to mention the costuming department probably didn't anticipate them being scrutinized for a YouTube video over 40 years later. Additionally, to conceal the face, a piece of camouflaged fabric was used. Having a distinctive weave and it obviously being see-through, it was almost assuredly the net mosquito camouflage, though more commonly known as a US Marine Corps mosquito net helmet cover, granted possibly modified some for the movie. These essentially doubled as both a cover for the M1 helmet bearing a variant of the M1942 frog skin pattern, as well as a full head protector for insects, and saw use from World War II through the Vietnam War. Between the hood and the netting covering his head and face, it took on the element of a mask and certainly gave it something of a twist, not only allowing his identity to be concealed until the very end of the movie at least, but also added a certain level of vague creepiness, as most other killers from horror films of that era wear masks or have distorted or grotesque features, but almost always share the similarity of them retaining some level of facial features. On top of all that, he also wore a standard US M1 steel helmet and accompanying liner. However, getting it 100% accurate is a bit of a challenge. What is known is that it is a post-1945 shell, as there is no front seam on it, along with the fact that the texture is a bit finer. Plus, the chin straps are latched rather than sewn and also feature a ball connector, making them T1s. Though this style of strap was created during the war, they didn't see much use, instead becoming standard issue with the metal latch connector method from the 1950s through the 1980s. As for the liner, it really can't be seen, so it's anyone's guess if it was a period correct one or a later model. That leaves just his belt, which was an aged and dirtied US M1910 dismounted cartridge belt with woven pockets, which gave their lower portions an almost scrunched up appearance. The design of these saw numerous variants and versions, both for the US military as well as others, and went through both World Wars and Korea. However, the woven design was seen primarily with the M1910 version, though technically was also replicated with some British-produced ones during World War II. Attached to this were two stranger pouches in that they both weren't US issue. The one on his back right was a canteen cover that was exclusively a part of the British Pattern 44 web equipment system. The pouch on his back left, though, is a little trickier. Having a hole cut in its bottom to be used as a makeshift holster for the sawed-off shotgun, this particular design of pouch fits the bill for a few different web systems, all of which harken back to British ones. Its overall shape is that of an ammo pouch, which had its design originate with the British 37 web equipment system, but due to it being redesigned and adopted by many nations post-World War II, there are numerous to choose from. However, based on its color, size, flap shape, and front securing method, it can be identified as the basic, also known as ammo pouch, of the Canadian M1951 web equipment system. Considering those aren't the easiest to acquire, you could also go the route of another British 44 web component, the right model pouch, as apart from its length and minute flap and securing tab details, it's almost identical. The last item he wore was a pair of black leather gloves, which lacked much in the way of stitching and other notable features. Coupled with their openings being hidden by the jacket, it's made them somewhat open to interpretation, but staying within the US Army uniform sphere, a simple pair of black leather dress gloves would do the trick. But that's about it for his overall look. Considering his uniform components were few and pretty straightforward, breaking it down was pretty quick, so let's talk about one final bit regarding this movie. Why isn't it that widely known or remembered? Well, as mentioned at the start, the 1970s and 80s were rife with horror films, specifically slashers. Quite a few stood out being remembered by filmgoers, with some even turning into franchises lasting decades. However, for every widely seen and remembered film like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there was also a smaller and forgotten one like The Funhouse, both directed by horror icon Tobe Hooper. Anyway though, factors are bountiful as to why certain horrors gained traction and others didn't, but when it comes to The Prowler, the reasoning is quite simple. Distribution. After production wrapped, Avco Embassy Films approached them offering to handle distribution, which would add a level of professionalism to it while also ensuring its release in over 1,000 theaters throughout the United States. However, the offer they gave them was less than the price it cost to make the film, and so it was declined, leading to an independent release, which saw the movie shown in certain regions of the US for a select period of time, then move on to another. This gradual segmented release schedule, which started in June of 1981 and ending in October, did result in people watching it, but because it wasn't played nationwide all at once, word of mouth and the hype that may surround a popular movie just wasn't able to happen, leading to low box office numbers. It did fare a bit better outside the United States though, and even led its director Joseph Zito to get the call to direct 1984's Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter. As with many less than successful horror movies, coupled with a sporadic VHS release through the late 80s and early 90s, it gained a cult following and is certainly worth the watch if you're a fan of 80s movies, slashers, or horror films in general. There's a reason Tom Savini refers to it as some of his finest work after all. But that will pretty much do it for this year's horror Halloween themed entry. This topic definitely appeared out of the blue and fit the bill perfectly. Hopefully it was a fun deviation and maybe gave a few a costume idea, or at the very least piqued the curiosity of some people looking for a fun, campy 80s horror to watch. A special thanks to Hardesty Creations, who identified a few pieces such as the shotgun holster pouch and gloves. Having put the costume together, among many others, he has seen his share of custom pieces and because of that is offering some of them, such as the modified frog for the M1943 Bolo bayonet, so if you're looking to put this look together, look no further. You can find a link to his Instagram account in the description below. If you found the video enjoyable and informative, perhaps leave a like and subscribe if you haven't yet done so. Additionally, if you have any ideas for future horror topics, be sure to leave a comment below. Happy Halloween to those who celebrate and even those who don't, and as always, be sure to check back real soon for more Uniforms of the Screen right here on Uniform History.